This is the last two sessions of the Leadership Excellence series. So thank you again for being here. This afternoon we're going to finish up the series and we're going to talk a bit about business relationships, and we're also going to talk a bit about our personal brand. So yesterday we spent the time talking about organizational strategies and leadership and inclusiveness and how we need to change our cultures and make sure that we're building cultures of inclusion and high performance and creating senses of belonging inside of our organizations, but how important it was to understand how the global workforce is changing and the demographic disruptions that are going to necessitate leadership competencies, changing skill sets and mindsets and certainly in attitudes. So today we're going to focus more specifically on us. So this morning, even though it's not a part of the Leadership Excellence series, we still had a really, really good group this morning where we talked about how to get a seat at the table, which many of you have a copy of the book as well too. And for those of you who weren't here, it's really a lot about my story as a woman, as a person of color, as a single mom, and the struggles that I had, but not only me, the struggles that are really common to a lot of people who are the only one. A lot of people who have been either a minority or been one who has been underrepresented group in the organization, working hard, overperforming, getting the results, but not getting invited to the table. So there are some strategies we shared this morning. So this afternoon, I want to focus on how do we make sure that we are expanding our brand, that we're exposing our brand, that we make sure that we know what our brand is. How many of you in here have heard more about personal branding over the last year or two, and a little bit, right? Why do you think that's so important? Why is branding so much more important? We talk about employer brand, but people have been talking more about personal brand. Why is that critical, sir?
Because it's more about you, because you're the only person that's going to toot your horn.
Yes, it's more about you because you're the only person that's going to toot your horn. Or you're the one that should be controlling your message. Guess what? People will be talking about you. The question is, what are they saying? Right? Very important. So we'll talk a bit about that today. So I want us to define our personal brand because I want you to understand that you do have one. And then we're going to have a little bit of a conversation on why having a personal brand is really, really critical to your success, not just in your career, but your success in life. And then also how to identify and create a really powerful personal brand. So let's start out, first of all, with the poll. How many of you think that you have a personal brand? By show of hands, how many of you say, yeah, I got a personal brand? And how many of you say, no, I don't have one, or I don't know what mine is? Okay, very good. So you're in the right place. We all have a personal brand, whether you are aware of it or not. Because your personal brand is really shaped and formed and influenced by your life experiences. Your totality of the things that you've gone through in your life, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. Many of you heard some of my stories this morning. Not only some of my setbacks, but also some of my successes. But my successes are a result of my setbacks. A lot of the tests, a lot of the adversities, obstacles that we face in life, they really do help form who we are. And that's how we show up in life every day. So our life experiences really have a lot to do with how our brand has been shaped and formed. It's also shaped and formed, too, by our point of view and our actions. So the way that we behave, you can think one thing, but if you're acting another way, that's what people see. They don't see what you're thinking. They see how you're acting. They see how you're behaving. And that is the brand, the aura that you put off. So when we think about our brand, be careful and be aware of how you might be perceived and not even know it. So our life experiences, certainly by our point of views that we express, and not only what point of views we express, but how we express our point of view. Do you know that you can have a great point of view, a wonderful idea, and the way you deliver it can shut people off, shut people down, cause them not to want to listen to you? Have you seen that before? Well, people are sharing great ideas, but because of the source of where it's coming from, we don't listen. So we want to make sure, too, that we're remembering that our brands have a lot to do with the way that we come across to people, the aura that we give off. It's also the way that others see us, and ultimately, we have a default brand. So maybe you weren't trying to or being intentional about or truly focused on controlling your message about who you are, but you've all along, the way you walk, the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you smell, the way you behave has all been a part of how you show up every day and the message that you're sending to people. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about that. What do you think a brand is? What is a personal brand? Your reputation. What else? Perception. Is that what you said? Yes, good. What else? Something memorable. Good. What else? Something you identified by. And something that precedes you. You don't necessarily have to be in the room, but when someone calls your name, when they say Dr. Shirley Davis, what comes to people's mind? What's your name?
John.
John. When they say John's name from Indianapolis, Indiana, what do they say about you?
I hope good things.
He's crazy, see? I'm going to pick on Daryl. So whenever we see or hear Daryl's name, how many of y'all in here know Daryl? A couple of people know Daryl. So what do you think, though, that people say whenever they hear him? He doesn't have to be in the room. He's a class act? Yeah. Okay. What else is Daryl known for?
His directness.
His directness. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's not.
His laugh.
His laugh. His smile. Absolutely. Great personality, right? Big personality. Good. So I want you to think about that. Your name. What do people say when your name comes up? Now, it might be in different sectors, right? Different sections. So let's say, for example, your name comes up in corporations or in your company, in your organization. It may be something different if someone brings your name up at home, in the family, in relationship. It might be different if it comes up at church or in your place of worship. It might be different if it comes up in a community or some kind of a nonprofit or charitable organization you're working with. So we may have, now I'm big on being transparent, being consistent, and who you are at work ought to be who you are at home. As far as your character, your integrity, your personality. Shouldn't be some persons at one place and then somebody totally different in another place that nobody recognizes you. All right, so when we talk about personal brand, a couple things may come to mind. Particularly as we're talking about personal and professional branding, are you an expert? So I want you to think about, did you know I'm big on assess, I'm big on diagnose yourself, I'm big on just reflect. What do you stand for? We talked a little bit about that this morning, about understanding your purpose and understanding your why in life. What do you stand for? And when you don't know your why and you don't know your purpose, it's hard to really know what you stand for. Because your values ought to be aligned with your purpose. Those of you who were in here this morning bode well with my qualitative poll that I've been doing for the last 10 years when I asked, how many of you in here know what your why is? What is your purpose? Less than 10% of the people's hands in the room went up. So many more of us need to know what is our purpose, what's our why in life, because that drives your decisions. It drives what you do. It drives how you do it every day. It's attached to your passion. So you should be doing things and living your life every day on purpose, with a purpose. Are you a genius? What ideas or notions pop up as soon as someone hears your name? What do you represent? And are you trustworthy? So a personal brand, and in many ways, as we see here, synonymous with your reputation, as someone said earlier. And it really does refer to the way that other people perceive you. So let's do a little bit of conversation around personal brand. I want you for a minute at your tables to think about your own personal characteristic of your brand. What are some of the descriptors? What are some of the adjectives people might use to describe your brand? Personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So a couple of you just don't know what people are saying about you. How would you find out? Yeah. So if you don't know what other people are saying about you, what I would encourage you to do, especially in the workplace, is get around some trusted advisors, some trusted friends, colleagues and coworkers, and ask them, how do you think you're perceived at work? Now, another way that you can know this is look at your couple of performance reviews. You'll see some keywords that probably have kept coming up. If you left this company and maybe went to another company and then worked at a different company, look at some of the performance reviews and the feedback and the coaching that you've gotten in all of those different settings and look for some trends and some themes that keep coming up. That may be, again, the way that you're being perceived. That's the way that other people see you. But it's certainly worthwhile asking. So that's your homework for those of you who don't know. Your homework is to go back and ask a couple of, at least 3 people, trusted advisors, what do you think my brand is? What do other people say about me when I'm not in the room? That's important to know. Okay, so when we talk about a personal brand, I love this. This was in Fast Company a few years back. Regardless of age, regardless of the position, regardless of the businesses that we happen to be in, all of us have to understand the importance of branding and understand that we are CEOs of our own company, Me Incorporated. And that beyond that, to be in business today, our most important job is to be the head marketer, to be the brand ambassador of a brand called You. How many of you know Tom Peters, great management guru who talks a lot about leadership as well? So when we think about the brand called You, understand that your brand has a lot to do with your ability to get a seat at the table, to move up in the organization, to be perceived as a person who people, what did we say this morning? People hire, pay for, and give better ratings to? People they like, people who they trust, people who they know. Absolutely. Those are tweetable. Thanks for some of you who tweeted. Actually, I do want you to do some tweeting and make sure it's hashtag Paycon, right? Because they're doing a lot of retweeting, and we're trying to continue to be trending as well, too. My hashtag is @DrShirleyDavis, or my user ID, @DrShirleyDavis. So, yes, you can move up the corporate ladder if your brand is not positive. If you don't have a real notion of what it is that causes you to stand out. You have to have a competitive advantage. You have to have something that distinguishes you from everybody else. What is that? What is the one thing that only you can do? The one thing that you're best at? The one thing that people should know you? Understand that your brand is really important. So brand is also defined by a couple of things. What do we mean by consistency? Why is that important in our brand definition? Can you be the same person every day? Can you not be one person on Monday and a different person on Friday? Consistency in how you show up every day. So can you have a nice attitude and a positive attitude consistently? Can you perform consistently? Can I trust you that consistently you're going to do what you said you were going to do? Are you a person of your word? That's tied with trustworthiness, but it's consistency too. People want to know that. That's your brand. Remember yesterday I was talking about how so many companies now are looking at organizational excellence as a core value. So we should always follow the trend of what you're seeing happening in the marketplace and what you're seeing happening with global workforces and companies and corporations and organizations. When you see companies are focused on innovation, guess what? You need to focus on innovation personally. Right? We talked about reinventing yourself. When you see companies are focused on organizational excellence as a core value, what should you be focusing on personally? Building that competency. Absolutely. Because if that's what they're looking for their organization, they're going to be looking for people inside of the organization who can live and breathe and eat that. Let that be one of your barometers on where you need to develop and grow. And if that's not something you do very, very well, that's something you want to develop. Good. What about distinction? What is distinction? What does that have to do with your brand? It's what makes you stand out from everybody else. Remember I talked about that this morning? It's so critical. You guys we're in a competitive environment, and you do not want to be one of 100 that has the same thing, does the same thing the same way. You got to be able to stand out and differentiate yourself from everybody else. You ever been in an interview and they ask you, why should we hire you? Right? You know what they're asking you? What makes you stand out? What makes you different? When I'm applying for proposals or responding to RFPs, one of the things that they always ask is, tell us how your consulting firm stands out or is different from the rest of them. Glad you asked. So you need to be able to answer that question. Can you answer the question of when someone says to you, what makes you different from everybody else? Why should I hire you? Why should I promote you? Why should I give you a $10,000 raise? Why should I give you that stretch assignment? You need to have an answer to that. Amen? All right. Right here we had, yes.
It's what makes you unique.
Unique, absolutely. And right beside you there was another. Oh, good. Y'all right on the same page. Excellent. Distinction. Distinction. I want you to think about what distinguishes you. Even in your roles in your companies right now, but I want you to think about it larger than that. What distinguishes you in life? What is the value add? What is the value proposition? What is the benefit that you bring because you're here? You're not here taking up space. You're not existing. Remember what I said this morning? People die at age 30 and don't get buried until age 85. Because too many people are average. Too many people settle for mediocrity. Too many people are just going along to get along, and they don't really know their why. They don't know their purpose. And they don't know what distinguishes them from everybody else. When you know that, it will take you to a whole nother level. So I want you to think about that. All right, so let's do an exercise here. We're going to think about, we talked about credibility, so let's move through that. A strong personal brand. Couple of things as we summarize this first part. It increases your value at work. How many of you know that your brand, your reputation, what people know about you can literally cause you to move up the corporate ladder? It can also cause you to move down or stay right where you are based on your brand. What if you have a brand that you're lazy? What if you have a brand that you're constantly complaining? What if you have a brand that you constantly drop the ball? You miss deadlines all the time. What if your brand or your reputation is that you come in late every day? What if your brand or your reputation is that you can't measure up? So what happens then when they're at the table talking about future leaders? What happens then when they're at the table saying, we got a great opportunity, we got a new client, we need someone who can take on that new client? Won't be you. Now, I know the question is going to come up, and it always does, is if I do have a bad reputation, how can I change it? Because it's sometimes hard to change, because you know in companies, right, that when people know who you are, that becomes your brand for the rest of your career there. It's hard to live it down. It's hard to change it. Sometimes you have to move to a whole different part of the organization where nobody knows your name. And then sometimes you just have to move outside of the organization altogether and go somewhere else on the other side of town where don't nobody know your name. It also increases the value of the organization and the business that you work for. That's important, right? So you want to be someone that when you're talking about the company, that you are a brand ambassador and that you are a great representation of the company. So if you're out acting, in a bad way, making bad decisions, you're a bad reflection of the company. They are not going to want to hire you and promote you and give you greater visibility. So that's important. Also, it sustains the value on the outside of the organization as well. What if you are sitting on community boards? What if you're volunteering to do certain things, but you're doing it on behalf of the company? And even if you're not, let me tell you what could happen. Let's say that you're one of those that are just driving home and you got road rage. Bad behavior. Or you're driving home and you're drunk. Something happens and then you get put on the news. Guess what they're going to say? Blankety Blank was driving drunk. He's an employee of Blankety Blank Company. It comes out, people tweet about it all the time. So you have to be careful. I always told my daughter this, and my daughter's 25 now, but she knew this growing up when she was in Pampers. I drilled it into her. Honey, whatever you do, don't go out and shame the family name. Don't do anything that is going to bring shame to the name. And today, she still recognizes that. Thank God she hasn't. I would still love her, but you still don't want to have to deal with the repercussions of that. Remember, we were talking about this yesterday about how so many companies have had to let leaders go because they've either been guilty of harassment, they've been guilty of all kinds of bad behavior that we've been seeing in the news. Some of them acted unethically. Some of them were doing insider trading, all kinds of stuff. That is a bad brand on the company. Companies don't want that. And then also, too, a strong brand can also give you a legacy. What are you known for? You go back to some of the companies that you worked for before. What would they say about you? When we call from an HR perspective and do a reference check, I know they're not going to tell us now. They just do your name, rank, and serial number. But if they were to tell me what kind of person you were when you worked at this company, if some of your old workers who worked with you at that company, and I were to reach out to them on LinkedIn and say, tell me what you know about blankety blank. What is it like to work for her? I'm getting ready to go now to a position, and she's going to be my new boss. What was it like to work for her? What would they say? Reputation is really important. What legacy are you leaving, whether it's one company to another company or just out in the community, out in public society? What are people saying about you? And then ultimately, it gives you mobility. One of the attributes of a strong brand is brand mobility. What does that mean? What does it mean? It follows you? Is that what you said? Yeah. Your brand follows you. It allows new doors of opportunity to open. When people know you and they know you in a positive way, it will open new doors of opportunity for you. You know, it's all about who you know, but more importantly, it's about what they know about you. Right? So we got away from this. It's not what you know. It's not just who you know, but it's what they know about you. So, who made who? What do you think? Did Steve Jobs make Apple, or did Apple make Steve Jobs? Chicken or the egg? Which one? What do you think? Steve Jobs made Apple. Why do you say that? Yes, sir. He was the innovator behind a lot of it. What about this one? Who made who? Richard Branson made Virgin, or did Virgin make Richard Branson? He made Virgin? What do you think? She didn't know him until he became founder of Virgin. So what's my point? What's my point? What'd you say? What you make makes you. Good, good, good. What else is my point? Yes.
Your brand is bigger than yourself.
Your brand can be bigger than yourself. How many of y'all would say that Virgin is bigger than Richard Branson? How many of you would say that Apple is outliving Steve Jobs? Right? I love that. Absolutely. So I want you to think about that in your own personal terms. Now, at your tables, I want you to just have conversations. I'm going to throw up a couple of pictures, and I want you to talk about which brand do you prefer and why. These are very, very popular brands. Which brand do you prefer and why? Go. So, what's the consensus? By show of hands, how many of you prefer Coca-Cola? And by show of hands, how many of you prefer Pepsi? What do you think? Who has it? Coke has it by just a slight margin. Okay. All right, here we go with another one. Which do you prefer? Hyatt Regency or the Ritz-Carlton? Where are those that prefer the Hyatt Regency? Okay, good. And then where are those that prefer the Ritz-Carlton? Okay. Good, good, good. Why? What was the consensus of why? Cheaper? Affordability. Good. That's what you got. How many of y'all that raised your hand can really afford the Ritz-Carlton? I should have asked it a different way, but I said prefer. Just because you can prefer it doesn't mean you can afford it. They're two different things. One is an aspiration, right? All right, so why do we prefer the Ritz-Carlton, most of us? Service, amenities, prestige. What was it? I couldn't hear that one. The experience. Good, good, good. Yes, what's yours? Oh, somebody else is paying for it. Okay. So we do have, again, these brands. Now, I want you to be a little bit more reflective here. Now, not which brand do you prefer, but which brand do others prefer? Think about you and someone else on your team, someone else in your organization. Would they prefer you or somebody else? This isn't one you need to talk about at your tables. I just want you to personally reflect on, are you the preferred brand in your organization? Why or why not? Important to know, important to know. So when we talk about your personal brand, it really is your ability to communicate. Your ability to communicate. And one of the things, I said this either yesterday or I said it this morning, is that when we talk about communication skills is the number one skill that leaders use to promote others, especially when you get higher up the organizational chart. It's communication. Can you communicate your ideas? Can you communicate your solutions? Can you communicate your project? Can you communicate your results in a clear, concise, compelling way? So your ability to communicate your brand can either be a career or a deal maker, or it can be a career or a deal breaker. It's either a maker or a breaker. If you cannot communicate, you have to be an effective communicator. So when we talk about creating a personal brand and building especially one that is a professional brand and one that you want to have a lasting effect, you got to make sure you do three things. You got to prepare. It's all in the presentation, and it's all in the packaging. So when we talk about creating a brand me, I want you to do three things. You got to define it, right? So what is the desired soundbite you want people to say about you? You also need to earn it. How are you going to deliver on that which you said you are? What you said you could do? How do you deliver on that? And then the third one is, how do you promote it? How should you share your personal brand? Now, we're in a day and age now where we're talking about digitization, talk about social media. And I'm just going to say this because I said it last year and I said it the year before. In this day and age, if you are a working professional who at some point will probably get another job or sell a service or run your own business or appear somewhere publicly in a professional setting, you need to be on LinkedIn. Can I just say that? You need to be on LinkedIn. Now, how many of us are on LinkedIn? All right, we got some hands who have not. So you really do need to be on LinkedIn. Let me tell you why. What if tomorrow your company came in, and this has happened many times, and they wash out a whole department? They outsource it, offshore it. You're out of a job now. What do? You got to start looking for another job. Let me tell you what you can't do. You cannot go taking your resume and go from house to house and person to person and business to business asking for a job, because people don't take resumes anymore. They want them online. They'll ask you to send it up through some applicant tracking system. And they also are going to then go look for you immediately on LinkedIn. I know that. I headed up recruiting for 10 years. And they do it today. I work with headhunters. I work with executive search firms. And they are looking for people who have a presence on LinkedIn. It says a little bit about you when you're not on LinkedIn. What do you think it says about your brand, your reputation? You're not keeping up with the times. That who isn't on social media, at least on a professional platform? Even if it's not true, it is the perception, even if it's not the reality. So I'm just giving you some coaching as a coach, a career coach, that you might want to establish your LinkedIn profile. I don't work for LinkedIn. I'm not getting any kickbacks or anything like that, but I can tell you that a lot of my business, a lot of my contacts, a lot of my contracts have come from my presence just being on social media, because people can find you now. How many of you know that people Google you? People Google you. If I'm dating somebody, I'm Googling them. I'm not the only one, right? Where the rest of y'all at, right? We start Googling people. We look up their platform. We look up their profile. I done been to his LinkedIn. I want to know, did he really work at that last job? If you had a 10-year gap and never worked anywhere and I don't see it on here, I got some questions. And I should, right? So, but again, we talked about brand consistency. Who you are in person ought to be the same person that I see on your LinkedIn profile. If you told me you worked at this company for 10 years, why is that not on there when you got all your other jobs listed? You tell me you went to MIT, Why is that not on there? So consistency is really important. So I'm just saying that when you're talking about your brand, you got to have some social media presence. All right, so I want you to ask these questions. Ask yourself this, define it. We talked about how important it is to do those 3 things. You got to define it, you got to earn it, you got to promote it, and be able to really, again, answer these questions. So if I were a product, how would I describe myself? Now, we're going to have these available for you on drshirleydavis.com. So you'll be able to download these, but you can take a picture of them as well. But these are questions that I coach people on what you should be asking when you're thinking about your brand. For people who said, I really don't know my brand, here's some questions for you to start asking. Who am I? What do others say I am? What makes me unique? What makes me me? What are my distinguishing characteristics? What are my distinctive competencies? How do I differentiate myself from the competition? What are my features? What are my benefits? What are my value adds? When people think of me, what comes to their mind? What kind of work do they associate with me? What kind of quality do they associate with me? So that's the defining part. And then understanding, too, again, what are some of your 4 or 5 letter word adjectives that you would use to describe yourself? What's your tagline? Do you guys know that I'm known as the success doctor? I gave myself that name. I controlled my own message because about 15 years ago, when I was finishing up my 2nd master's degree and I was into my PhD program, I was like, okay, gosh, I'm going to be a doctor, and I do a lot of success coaching. It makes sense, then why don't I just do the success doctor? And so I opened up a coaching business called The Success Doctor, right? So I actually put that as my brand, and now people know me as that, and everywhere I go, that's what I'm referred to as well. What's your story? What do people know you as? I also have coined myself as a global workforce thought leader. Why? Listen to those words. They're very strategic. What do they say to you when you hear those 4 words? Global, workforce, thought leader. What does that send? What message? She's the one to go to, right? What else does it send a message? Well-rounded, experienced, what else? Competent and confident, what else? Diverse, international, what is it? Innovative. Good. So what's your story? Are you a whiz of a sales executive? Are you the turnaround ace? Are you the change agent in human affairs? Are you the payroll guru? Whatever you want to be called, you need to be known for something. If you do not control your message, others will. So you need to have some way that you refer to yourself, even if it's online. That's how I started. And then I started putting it in my bio, so when people introduce me, that's what they call me. So now it's a mental thing. Mentally, it's like programming you. It's called bias. That's how bias is started. From hearing something over and over and over and over again, and we program your brain, mentally, that's what you see. That's who you begin to know. So what is yours? Thinking about that. When we talk about earning it, earning your brand, we talked about this earlier, becoming an expert, right? Get your work noticed. How do you get your work noticed in your organizations? Make sure it's quality. And what else? Speak up. Yeah, in update project meetings, when you have an opportunity, when you're working with your manager, your direct supervisor. One of the ways that I got a lot of my work noticed was through other people. I learned how to manage my managers. So when I would have meetings twice a month or once a month, and I'm updating him or her on what my projects were, my successes were, my accomplishments were, I would put it together in a one-page document like a dashboard. And I would literally say, here are the successes on this project, this program. What I was also doing was, again, living a mental message. I was managing him on what to say on my performance reviews. So you have to, if you never tell your bosses or tell other people what you're doing, one, they don't necessarily always know what you're doing. My boss has 6 other direct reports. They can't keep up with everything we're doing, so we have to be our biggest brand ambassadors. We have to be our spokespersons. We have to be our own cheerleaders. And I said this yesterday, we got to learn how to toot our own horn without blowing it. Very important. Tactfully, diplomatically, strategically inserting our successes and our accomplishments and the results that we're getting in meetings, project updates. And I mentioned this earlier, men do a better job at this than women. So maybe you want to get a male mentor or a male peer coach to talk to you about how do you sell yourself? How do you toot your own horn? How do you express and share your results that you're getting? And then we talked about consistency, right? Consistency, remembering that every move that you make either reinforces or it violates your brand. So consistency. Do what you say you're going to do and consistently do it. And the third one is promoting it, right? So I talked about how important it is to leverage your brand on social media. Now, how many of you are on YouTube? Just me? Okay, got a couple people on YouTube. All right, how many of you are on Instagram? Good, we got a good number of people on Instagram. How many of you are on LinkedIn again? Most of us, very, very good. Now, let me ask a quick question. How come people shun social media platforms, particularly LinkedIn? I just want to hear from some of you. Those of you who are either on it and kind of got on it resistantly, or those who said, nah, I'm not doing that. Why? I know now, if you're in the government, federal government, I know there's some of you cannot do it for specific legal reasons. I understand that, but if that's not the case, I want to kind of understand why. Yes, ma'am?
Privacy concerns.
Privacy concerns. Yeah, everybody has those. What is yours?
A lot of junk. You get a lot.
You get a lot of junk. You need to learn how to manage a lot of the junk. And just like in your email, you got to manage a lot of spam, right? How do you manage spam? You block them, right? You can block them on LinkedIn too. Absolutely. You can manage your connections. You can manage your notifications. You can manage your comments. If you don't want to hear from nobody, you can post and put on there you don't want comments on it. So there's ways, and maybe part of it is understanding some of the features and the benefits. Privacy, they've got privacy features on there, but everybody can be hacked. But if you got an email, you can be hacked there too. If you got a credit card, that can be hacked too. So we're living in a digital age, guys, where those are the realities, those are the concerns, but you also got to know that you got to be on social media if you want to build a brand, and if you want to be known for something, if you want to have an impact, if you want to be able to be relatable to people up, down, and across the world. That's the way you're going to be able to do it. You can't travel every country, can't travel every city and state, but the way you can reach people is to reach them through a social media platform. That's why Thomas Friedman wrote the book, The World is Flat. It feels flat now because by the touch of a button, I can connect, collaborate, and compete with you on social media. I learned so much just by going to social media. Research, data, blogs I'm reading, videos from people. That's how many of you go to LinkedIn Learning? Tens of thousands of courses on LinkedIn Learning at your fingertips. How many of you are on Vimeo? Or at least watch some of the Vimeo videos. Just a few of us. How many of you on Snapchat? Okay, y'all are the millennials and the Gen Zs, right? All right, so for real, do we have any baby boomers on Snapchat? Okay, all four of y'all. Go, girls. All right, I see y'all. They on Snapchat. It's so funny because the only reason I get on this is because I want to see what my daughter doing. Okay, so that's what y'all doing too. So either way, I'm trying to keep up with them. And it's so funny because a lot of us, when we got on Facebook, our kids left Facebook and went to Snapchat. I was like, I'm going where y'all going. I'm tech savvy. Don't mess with me. Right? So my daughter's on Snapchat as well, too. So how many of you on Facebook? Now, are you on Facebook for personal reasons or on Facebook professionally as well? Both? Okay, good. Some of you, I would encourage you that if you don't want all your family in your business, that you may want to do like a Facebook fan page, right, for your business stuff. And then just have some personal stuff. And even on Facebook, you can block, unfriend, you can cut off notifications, cut off comments. So you can have control over some of your notifications. Anybody on Pinterest? Okay, good. And then who's on Twitter? Who's my tweeters in the room? Very, very good. We got some tweeters in the room. Excellent. So how is it working for you? How is social media helping you build your brand? Any stories in here? Let me go back to this real quick. Stories on how social media either helped you get a job, helped you get promoted, helped you get a new connection that really resulted in something else, profitable, productive, or whatever. I told you mine. I use it to not only, I've gotten jobs by LinkedIn, I've connected people through business relationships and strategic partnerships. I've helped others through some blogs and they reached out to me and asked questions. But more importantly, I got booked a lot just being on social media, just particularly on LinkedIn. You can post videos up there now. You can go live. If y'all want to go live on LinkedIn, you can go live now, just like you can go live on Facebook. So it's a lot of options and stuff that's out there. All right, so let me end it with this. 12 steps. I'm just going to summarize it all. Y'all can take pictures, but these will also be on the website. You can download these as well under free resources on my website. So I want you to do these if you want to build that powerful personal brand. Is assess how you are being viewed today. What do I mean by SWOT? Absolutely. Now, we talk about this in terms of business. I challenge you to do your own personal SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are your threats? Determine your value proposition. What are you known for as a subject matter expert? And if you're not, what do you want to be known for? Set a vision for your brand. A vision is about what number 2 says. What do you want to be known for? But ultimately, what do you want to accomplish with your brand? What do you want to do with it? Do you want to use that for business to gain greater, more customers, greater visibility, build your market? Whatever you want to do, just come up with a vision on how you want to leverage your brand. You also want to identify your target audience. Like for me, it's senior leaders, it's senior executives, it's HR professionals, it's people who are in diversity and inclusion. Who are your audiences that you want to target? Because your content, the way you show up, the way you respond, your comments and all of that needs to position you based on your vision and your subject matter expertise. Talked about the importance of controlling your message. Putting things out there that are positive, but things that are out there that are consistent with who you are, what you stand for. Being consistent about that. And then updating your bio and your profile. So please don't have a LinkedIn profile and you haven't visited it in 2 years. You got to keep it updated, keep it fresh as well. You guys don't know this, but there's an algorithm that LinkedIn uses to really kind of determine your level of influence or impact, and actually it's an algorithm and it's a number that can be used by executive search firms and recruiting as well. So if you're a person on LinkedIn and all you have is 10 connections, that's going to hurt you. You need to have more connections. I know that from when I used to recruit and I would look up profiles and you only had 10 people on your, well, what does it mean? God, they only had no friends. They don't hardly know anybody. It's a subliminal message that it sends. It's probably not true, but it's about the 3 to 5 seconds of the immediate impact and the immediate impression that people get about you. It's so funny. Dr. Katrina's in the back. Last year I was talking about this, and she went and updated her LinkedIn profile. And it's so funny. She went and LinkedIn with me, and she was like, as soon as I linked in with you, it's like I went up to 100 more profile people that came knocking on my door. And that's, because that's how the algorithms work. When you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, it keeps connecting you to people. All right, so the other thing you want to do is increase your visibility online. We already talked about that. You also want to get published. You want to be published too, polished. But you want to get published and start maybe like a blog or something, particularly if you're a business person. If you're an expert in something, it could be in HR. It could be specifically in payroll, whatever that might be. You may not want to get published. That may not be your thing. So this is for people who are wanting to go up to another level in their career or another level in their own business or whatever. Curate engaging and relevant content. So please do not use social media to, oh my God, I hate seeing this. Please do not use social media to say a lot of nasty stuff. That's not the appropriate place to do that. Do that in a private message to the person. But when you put stuff out there and you're spewing all this kind of sometimes hate and sometimes bias, it just doesn't send a good message about who you are. And then I'll talk a bit about updating, upgrading, and uplifting, right? Keep it real, be authentic. We talked about that. And then join groups and invite others into your conversations. All right, good. Let me summarize. Key takeaways. Everybody has a personal brand, whether you know it or not. Whether you're aware of it, you got a personal brand. Question is, what is it? Your default brand is what others think about you when you don't even know about it, when you're not there at the table. But it's important to know what other people think about you so that when you're not at work, they're defining, earning, and promoting your personal brand. You do not want to leave your personal brand to chance. You want to control your message. Having a strong personal brand is really key to your career and your personal success, especially in a competitive environment that we live in today. People are always going to remember your negative brand, your reputation for a long time. It's going to be hard to live it down. And certainly it's important to continuously refine and reinvent your brand and to stay relevant. All right, guys, thank you.